name is Andrea Picard, and it's my great pleasure to be welcoming you to the first Wavelengths Shorts program, and it's such a pleasure to see such a full house again this year. Before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge that tonight's event is taking place on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of New Credit and the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work in the community. And also, for all of these shorts programs, I would just like to really emphasize how lucky we are to have such a great tech team. And I'd like to thank everybody in the technical department at Tiff for allowing us to present films on 16mm, 35mm, 70mm, this year, and also that we're able to curate films not based on format changes. So we can really curate the programs as we wish because they are tremendous. So thank you so much to Dave Callahan. And everyone in the tech department, James King, Andre Gravel, Diane Capoletto, and everybody who's going to be working these shows to make them go smoothly. And of course, thank you to all the filmmakers for being here. So many people are here from out of town, and I welcome you to Toronto. And of course, the audience, because without you, we wouldn't have this program at TIFF. And as you know, last year we moved the shorts programs into the cinema and purchased a new projector so that we could accommodate more people. And so that's really gratifying. And also, I'd really like to thank, where is he? Jesse Cumming over there, the programming associate, who's been fantastic to work with, and he's also been instrumental in putting together these programs and also researching our archival selections this year. So thanks again to Jesse, and he's going to be helping out with some Q&As as well. And I don't want to make this introduction too long because we've started a little bit late and we have so many guests tonight. I think we're 7 people. And so I'm going to call them up. Oh, before. The only person who couldn't make it here tonight, and he's also installing in Gwangju and doing a number of things, and that's Apichatpong. And I'd really like to thank him because he did something exceedingly grateful. His new film, Blue, was commissioned by l'Opéra de Paris, and they've been actually producing a lot of great films. You might have seen Bertrand Bonello's Sarah Winchester. And these are films that they've been producing with auteurs and then putting them online. And when I spoke to Apichatpong about it, you know, he's had such a great time at TIFF and with the installation and at Wavelengths, and he knows how great the audience is. So he really wanted to ensure that the film was projected in a cinema with an audience before it went online. So we have that great privilege tonight. And now I'm going to invite everybody else on stage to introduce their films. So please welcome Kevin Everson, who I see there. And Sky Hopinka is here with us for the first time, even though we've shown his films before. And Britany Gavelly and Ken Linehan are here. And Jodie Mack, who's here with 2 films. And Malena Szlam. So we've got 1 mic. I'm just going to pass it.
Thanks for coming. My film is Poly 1.
Thanks, Kevin.
What do you want me to say?
Oh my goodness, Lina Rodriguez, also here.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jodie Mack. I'll be presenting a short film in the program called Hoarders Without Borders 1.0. It's a stop-motion animation of the mineral collection of Mary Johnson.
My name is Sky Hopinka, and my video is called Fainting Spells.
You don't want to add anything? I'm Britany Gavelly, and this is Ken Linehan. And we made Prologue to the Tarot Glenna, and Glenna's actually in the audience too. And it's the first of a series of films we're working on that are these kind of mystical archetypal portraits of people where we collaborate with them through the process, and we do unplanned double exposure. So I hope you enjoy it.
My name is Malena Szlam. My film is Altiplano. It's a 35mm film, and thanks for coming tonight.
My name is Lina Rodriguez, and my film is Ante Mis Ojos. And thank you to Andrea and Jesse and Wavelengths for having us, and thank you guys for coming.
Hi. Please join me in welcoming back to the stage Kevin Jerome Everson with Poly 1, Sky Hopinka with Fainting Spells, Ken Linehan, Britany Gavelly, and is Glenna here? If she's here, please come up for a Portrait of the Tarot. Jodie Mack for Hoarders Without Borders, Lina Rodriguez with Ante Mis Ojos, and Malena Szlam for Altiplano. As everyone's coming up, Andrea mentioned it, but I'll take the opportunity to remind everyone that Jodie's feature, The Grand Bazaar, is playing in this very room tomorrow at 11:45 a.m. And she can confirm, but it's the North American premiere, but I think it's the first time that it's showing on celluloid, so we'll show it on 16, which I think personally looks pretty good in here. Hi. We started a bit late, so I'm just going to throw immediately to questions. Please, anything you would like to ask our artists? Don't be shy. One question over here. Question is for Lina about your process making Ante Mis Ojos.
So I shot it on Super 8 on this stock called Whitner Chrome. It's a like 200D. So what I normally have done for like the past 10 years is that I have a Super 8 camera and I use it when I travel, and it depends if I find something interesting without necessarily having an idea for a film. I register, document the space. So this lake, it's a lake that I used to go to when I was in high school. They would take us there on field trips. It's supposed to be where the legend of El Dorado originated, and it's this very strange place because it's like you have to go high up. Like geographically, it's a very strange combination of things. So I shot 2 rolls of Super 8, and I ended up using probably 85% of the footage that I shot. And I don't know. I didn't have an intention when I was there, but I think the space has such a tension of energy, I guess. It has, I think for me in a way, the lake is a survivor because of course it's been desecrated for centuries by people like trying to find gold, but also like contamination. And I think that in a way, but it has like this natural beauty. So I wanted to see how it would register in Super 8. It's such a demanding format, and there were so many instances where I thought I was going to get nothing, and so the process of discovering the footage once I got it, trying to see how, and I had never worked with the stock before because the stock that I had normally worked that didn't have any, so it was an interesting process to kind of see what the stock captured. But I think in a way I was trying to I guess it's also about thinking about what we can see and what's visible, and you know, so much of history, it's about how we position ourselves towards something and how do we see it, and can we even see what's there? It's a long answer.
Other questions for our guests? Maybe we can start. Oh, yeah, please.
My question's for Jodie. Considering you're used to
Questions about Jodie's film. You're used to working with patterns and shapes. What was it like working with these disparate objects?
It was easier in some sense because the order was mapped out for me. Yeah, I feel that my work is about to take a turn into the natural world, since a lot of these synthetic materials I use actually do come from natural materials in the very beginning. My feature that's playing tomorrow morning flirts with the problematics of ethnography. And I was working at Harvard last year and became really interested in the Peabody Museum and all of these questions around repatriation of objects and things like that. And I went to the geological and mineralogical collection, which is right underneath the Peabody Museum. They're not quite connected. And we started talking, and I sort of asked them, like, so do you guys talk about repatriating these rocks and minerals ever? Do you ever talk about giving them back to the earth? The answer was no. And yeah, there was a collection that had not yet been inventoried. So we actually worked together while I was shooting. They were inventorying or taking inventory of the collection. And Mary Johnson had organized them alphabetically, though there is a different cataloging system to organize minerals by structure. So I felt like, I wasn't allowed to change the order of the way because we were taking inventory of it. So it was actually just really therapeutic to just go through. Sorry if that was more than you wanted to know.
Other questions from the audience for our filmmakers? Kevin, maybe we can start with your film. The past couple times you've been here, you've shown films that were sort of inspired by your family, and this one's dedicated to Bertha Everson, right?
Oh yeah, that's my grandma. Yeah,
Maybe you could speak a little bit about the influence of your family on your films, or maybe this one in particular.
Well, I mean, during the eclipse, I think the eclipse was the 21st of August last year in the United States, and it was the day after my grandmother passed away. So then I just like named it after her nickname, Polly, whatever, so to speak. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Other questions? Yes. Questions about process and what happens when you make your work.
That's a great question. Well, starting with the idea of this plant, which is called a huisca, or the Indian pipe plant, and thinking about that being a plant that was used by my tribe to revive people that have fainted. And immediately my mind went to these different places about how did that come about. The plant is also this really white, gentle, bell-shaped fungus that grows on the floor bed. And from that, I tried to figure out how to make a myth for it in some ways, because those are parts of the things that have been lost with forced assimilation. And through that, the idea of the myth then became something of an opportunity for me to then work through these visual sort of realms and try and not do something as explicit as I've done in the past, or a video that I did last year. And so in a sense, just working through these images, there were just attempts to try and find ways to express my relationship to the idea of the myth, as well as how I exist within these spaces. And also, what does it mean to faint? And what does it mean to have that continually happen to you? And what do some of the things embedded in this language, which is Ho-Chunk, mean to express in this relationship to it through the language, some of these things that can't be translated. So in some ways, the process of working through this in my relationship with these images is an attempt to translate the untranslatable in ways that are accessible not only to me as someone trying to work through these images, but also to an audience who may not have a background in the language or the culture, or even know what it's like to have fainted.
See, did I yeah, for me, like seeing the eclipse and seeing amazingly seeing how the light was, what the light was doing, something I've never seen before, so to speak. But there was two different things. I was like aiming at the sun, but then like seeing around me and kind of working around it and stuff was kind of amazing. But I don't know if it changed me more that I want to do more of it, but also too, but I come from photography and sculpture and painting. So the whole idea of like making things look abstraction and stuff, but interesting, but just when you film something like these kind of lighting phenomenons, you're not sure how it's going to look on 16 millimeter film. So you just got to kind of roll with it. Yeah. Rolling.
Malena,
but I have not changed.
Malena, I'd be curious to hear what you have to say about this as well, because your film is so incredibly precise, but there's a lot of room, it looks like, for the spontaneous and for chance. I'm curious to know how you approached making Altiplano.
Is it? Yeah. Yeah, I think it had to do with, in a personal level, had to do with a journey to a land where my ancestors lived. And especially going through the territory of the Chilean territory into Argentina, into the valleys. And it had to do with kind of developing an awareness with the journey itself and the way of filming it. All the film is edited in camera. I mean, there are two different stages of editing. The first one through the journey of going through these lands and crossing the Andes, and observing how my body also is reacting in relationship to the atmosphere, the air, the wind, the sound, the silence, the colors, the lighting, night, the temperature, and how I'm reacting in relationship to like an emotional land as well, connected to this land that is so pristine and so unbelievably not Earth, but it's Earth. So it's like it's going into a different planet as well, like internally and externally, and just so magical and powerful. So it's connecting with all these different layers of the body, the human body, the breathing, the walking, the slowness, but also time seems to be faster in altitude. So it's all these different relationships, and yeah, which was different from working with image and working with sound. It's two different things. So, yeah, I think it's.
We're almost out of time, and I assume some people will want to see El Cohen in a few minutes, but I'd love to hear Britany and Ken and Glenna, maybe you guys could speak a little bit about collaboration, both as filmmakers working in different cities and collaborating with, I was going to say subjects, but I think star is more appropriate.
Yeah, Ken and I started this experimental collaboration where, because he lived in Providence and I lived in Boston, and sometimes communication wasn't free flowing and stuff, we started doing this co-meditation thing where we would do all these different like psychic experiments and stuff, and actually this project grew out of that. And then another thing we wanted to introduce was less control over the film. So double exposure is part of that, collaborating with someone else that brings their own ideas and personality to it, and then working together, where I think maybe in this case I shot one pass and you shot the second pass. We don't always do it like that, but and in this case we hadn't planned it, so like everything, all the lineups with the two layers are serendipitous, and so there was magic. I mean, it was like that's part of the like getting the film back is like the really satisfying to see what happens, because we totally don't know what it's gonna look like. And the idea with the tarot portrait series was that so our star will bring like they help decide like where they want to be filmed, what they want to be wearing, what their objects, things that represent they see certain things about themselves and their emotions and stuff. But it's an ongoing like collaboration. So Ken and I usually discuss it beforehand. We shoot, and then it unfolds, and we're and sometimes we would do these meditations before, and other ideas would come to us during those things. So we try to keep it super cosmic. You guys want to say?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I mean, I think that's part of the collaborative thing for us too, is I think the films are a little bit about the personal magic that people have, and bringing these folks like Glenna and the other people that we've worked with, and that there's not a plan, and the idea is to allow the film to be a space where the person can channel their own spirituality or their own kind of personal magic and see themselves as a magical being, as opposed to just a basically an old person in the way that we tend to see ourselves from day to day, and that the cinema and the film being projected is a way to allow people in the room to connect with that notion of themselves as a magical being and to see themselves in the subject or the star of the film.
Realize, that vision.
Let's say a quick word, Glenna.
It was just a really fun sort of like improv meditation without premeditation for me, because I feel like you guys we all got together one day and we're like, we're gonna film something. Let's go get some stuff from the basement and like, But I think traditionally I feel not so comfortable with doing too many improvisational things, but this was just such a wonderful way to kind of put a thinking cap on with two other people and make something really beautiful.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have, but please come back tomorrow night for Wavelengths 2 at 7:45. One last round of applause for our guests. Yeah, Jodie's film tomorrow morning. Keep it cosmic.